Hello and welcome to Saints Live. I'm Kenzie Benali, and as you can see, the sun is shining over St Mary's Stadium for the Premier League clash between Southampton and Arsenal. Now, the Saints are without a win in 5 matches, whilst Arsenal come into this one off the back of 2 losses on the bounce. So both teams will be searching for a win. And with us for the afternoon is former Saints captain Dean Hammond and NBC's lead soccer writer Joe Prince-Wright. Welcome both. Lovely to have you here. And Joe, our first show in person.
Oh, it's lovely to see you in person. So let's hope it's a good day and a good win.
Oh, absolutely. Fingers crossed. Dean, you're wrapped up. The sun is out, but it's still chilly, isn't it?
I was just about to say that, Kenzie. It's beautiful on the pitch, but it's a little bit cold up here, so got my big coat on. But looking forward to the game. The pitch looks magnificent. Always brilliant to be back at St Mary's. Brings back lots of fond memories for myself. So looking forward to the game.
Absolutely, yeah, as are we. Well, let's get to the team news, shall we? Because that is coming away in less than 15 minutes' time. We'll start with some team news from the Saints Live camp, actually. You might have noticed my co-host Steve Forbes isn't alongside me. Sadly, Steve does have COVID, so we are wishing him all the best. But with regards to team news on the player side of things, to our knowledge, everyone is available. And of course, Armando Broja is back today after being ineligible against Chelsea. So with that in mind then, Dean, let's come to you first. Do you see any changes happening today to take on Arsenal?
I expect so, Kenzie. I think it'll be really interesting. I think it would have been a big thought process for the manager, if I'm honest. Not just from the Chelsea game, from previous fixtures as well, with no win in 6, 5 defeats in that as well, a valuable draw at Leeds. So the manager will have lots to contemplate on, really. Really good squad of players. I'm sure training's been really intense this week. I'm sure they've analysed the game. But personally, I do expect some changes today. I think Broja will come back in. I think that's a real plus. I can see Jack Stevens coming back into that back four with, I think it's 15 goals conceded in the last 5 league games. So something potentially needs to change there. Perrault could come back in at left back. Then that will leave it open who plays at right back, Livramento or Kyle Walker-Peters, both in fine form and both had a brilliant season. And then attacking players, will Nathan Teller come in? I'd love to see that. Bring that young enthusiasm, that freshness as well. Nathan Redmond, I'd love to see him back in the team. But there's lots of options. Will there be a change of shape? Me and Joe spoke about that before the show. So I'm interested to see what happens today after the result last week. But a response from the players and just really important, I think, to put a performance on. Can't control the result, can't control the outcome, but performance from the player, high energy, and play how we want Southampton to play. I think that's what I'd be expecting today.
Yeah, most definitely. Joe, it is an interesting one, isn't it? Because as Dean's just said, there is a plethora of options. How do you see Saints lining up this afternoon?
Who knows, basically. I think after all bets are off after the defeat to Chelsea last week, as Dean mentioned there's been a run of really poor defensive displays. So that's the area I think you might see a few changes. Maybe go back to that 3-5-2 that we talked about, Jack Stevens potentially coming in. But there needs to be, I think, some better balance about the team. In recent weeks, the defensive mistakes have cost them dear. But there are players now, I think, fighting for maybe new contracts or a place in the team ahead of next season. So that's going to play a factor in these last 7 games of the season. I think it starts today. But most importantly, better performance than last week. I think that's what we're all hoping for and expecting. And then go from there and see what the result is.
Well, let's reflect briefly on the match last week. I mean, Dean, you said you imagine training would have been intense this week just gone by, but what about what was said after in the dressing room? What do you think was being said to the players then?
Just some honesty, Kenzie, and probably some home truths, which is good. That's how you learn, and that's how you bring that togetherness as a squad, collectively and individually. And I think you have to be honest to improve, and I think them words would have come from the manager and come from the players as well. I hope it's an open dressing room. I hope everyone's allowed an opinion and can speak and speak openly, and I'm sure that would have continued into the week in terms of training on the pitch and off the pitch. When you have a heavy defeat like that, you tend to have more meetings, which can be boring for the players that don't want to do it, but you need to analyse the game. You need to learn, especially with a young group that Southampton are. So I'm sure they've taken that opportunity that week to do that. But also it opens up the options for players that have not been playing to think, right, I'm going to train really well this week. I'm going to put maybe more effort in, maybe catch the eye of the manager, that there'll be opportunities and chances to play when they haven't been playing because of the results and because of the performance last week. You look at it this season, I don't think you can be critical of many performances. Like I say, you can't control the results. But last week, the players were off it. If they look at it, they looked a little bit tired. There was a bit of fatigue there, I think, whether that was mentally or physically. So I'm sure that's been looked at. But I'm sure, you know, from my experience of being a player, training would have been intense this week. There would have been a few challenges flying around and people trying to impose themselves and impress a manager to get a starting position today. So I'm looking forward to a response. We spoke about that last week, about how Chelsea responded from that heavy defeat to Brentford, and they have. They had a brilliant result against Southampton and then performed really, really well in Madrid. So I'd like to see that from Southampton there. And that's, like I mentioned, it's all about the performance. Put that in, and what happens from there.
You can't ask for more than a great performance, can you? From a Saints fan's perspective then, Joe, obviously it's great to have you both with us because you can kind of speak from a player's angle and obviously as a Saints fan yourself, Joe. What was the overriding feeling after that heavy defeat last week?
I think it was one of just, hopefully this is a one-off and that's it. And then the other side of it is looking for the defensive improvements we talked about. All season long, the way that this team's improved and got themselves up the table and had some great results in the middle of the season was cutting out those silly defensive mistakes. So I think it's a bit worrying from a fan's perspective that those mistakes have kept creeping in. And we mentioned it there, 15 goals conceded in the last 5 games, the most in the Premier League. So they need to improve on that, brush that up and just kind of be sharper in that sense. But I think consistency is key as well. Some really good displays this year. If you think about the wins away at Tottenham and West Ham, drawing home and away against both Manchester teams, and just some really good moments for this very young team, but some really bad ones, and last week really summed that up. So I think we have to remember how young the team is. Consistency is hard to get, but the next few years, if they stay together, add to the squad, there's a lot of potential there. I've already seen that. But it's also, I think, just about taking the opportunity now and building and saying, you know what, for the fans, we need to have a good finish to the season, a strong finish to the season. And it starts today, basically. Dean mentioned it there. You need to show a reaction and show that you've learned from that, and then move on and hopefully finish the season strong, because there's a lot to play for this season. As a Saints fan at the start of the season, if you'd have said to me with 7 games to go, you have a chance of finishing in 10th place, realistically, only a couple of points off that, I would have grabbed anyone's hand off for that. And I think we all have to remember as Saints fans, it's a one game, hopefully it is a one-off. We'll see that over the next few weeks. But perspective is key, and this is a very young team. I think has a lot of upside, a lot of potential. So let's not get too downbeat and too despondent, but it is difficult after a big defeat like that for sure.
Yeah, it is. But of course we are looking forward to kick-off today, and the team news is coming your way in less than 10 minutes time. So let's hear from Ralph Hasenhuttl now, who seemed to suggest in his press conference that changes were a possibility today.
We have still a very good situation with 36 points. It's very tight in the center, in the middle of the table, and important is that we find back to the basics, to the fundamentals, and this was the goal for the week.
Is it a situation where you're thinking about making kind of wholesale changes, or these guys have done a pretty good job certainly since Christmas? So is that the dilemma that you've got now, whether you sort of stick with the guys or give some other people a chance?
Yeah, I know. I think we always have to look what somebody offers during the week. We had a few good sessions so far this week, and not decided yet who gets the chance to play. Yes.
Well, Dean, let's kind of discuss that potential starting 11 then, because we have become quite accustomed to seeing that Jan Bednarek-Mohamed Salisu centre-back pairing. But what about Lianco and Jack Stevens? Now everyone's available. Is that something we could potentially see?
I think so, Kenzie. I think that the option's definitely there. With Jack, you've got a player that's got lots and lots of experience. I really like Jack. I knew him as a youngster. He reads the game really, really well. He's calm in possession, which is really, really important, especially when you're under a bit of pressure and you're conceding goals and you want to keep possession and build from the back. Jack is made for that, and he had such a strong start to the season. He'd improved. He became a little bit more aggressive. He was on the front foot. He was showing more aggression in his tackles, in his reaction to the opposition, and I really, really like that. And he got an injury at a poor time, and he's been in and out of since. He's had to be patient because Bednarek and Salisu have formed a really good partnership. But Jack offers you a lot of value. I think he really, really does. He understands the club. He understands what is expected, and I think that's really, really important. And with Lianco, you know, he's come in. He's had to be patient, a bit like Salisu last season, when everyone was expecting to come in and play straight away, and the manager managed him really, really well. Kind of allowed him to look at the Premier League, adapt to a new country, get to know his teammates, get to understand how Southampton play. And when he's come in again, he has been really, really aggressive, and he looks like he wants to play for the football club. He makes strong tackles. He just plays with his heart on his sleeve, and I think that's brilliant. And again, you come back to the fans, that's what they want to see. And he's done okay as well. Is it too early for him with the injury? We'll have to find out. But the manager definitely has options in those areas. And we talk about the goals that we conceded of late. It's not always about the defenders. It's not always about the centre halves. You can look at it and go, well, it's a two centre half because that's the last bit before it gets to the goalkeeper. But it's a team effort. You know, you can look at the midfield players. You can look at the wide men. Are they staying with runners? It starts at the front with the press for Southampton. Are the forward players working as hard as they possibly could? So it'd be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to this team selection because I really can't. Me and Joe spoke about it. I really can't guess what it's going to be. But yeah, I think there could be a few changes today.
Certainly an interesting one, isn't it? Now, what about Brozier then, and changes up top? Because Dean seems to think he will come back into the starting 11. And if that is the case, what does he need to do to trouble the Arsenal defence today?
100%, he has to come back in. I think what he gives you, I mean, we're seeing it, going to see it here, the finishes, just the potential, by the way, of these goals, the calmness, the composure. It's brilliant, and the way he stretches defences, I think that's going to be really important today. I was at an Arsenal game at the very start of the season against Brentford when Ivan Toney and Brian Mbeumo just dragged Arsenal's two centre-backs all over the place, and Brozier's very good at doing that. And I think Ben White and Gabriel for Arsenal, they're not comfortable at running towards their own goal and pacing behind. And we're seeing all these goals here, very similar. Brozier getting in behind, playing right on the last man, and just turning and having a crack, and he's, you know, it just sums up his potential. Ralph's been talking once again about, you know, potentially him coming in on loan for another season or trying to buy him from Chelsea. We know how difficult that is right now with the Chelsea ownership situation, but he has to play for me because I think what he does, he's direct, right? When you talk to defenders all the time around the Premier League, they hate players of pace and they hate players that run directly at them. And this goal here sums it up perfectly. When Brozier, when he's running at a defence, he can go either way, right? He can go right, left, he can turn players inside out. You never quite know what you're going to get when you're a defender marking him, and he brings that air of just not being quite sure if you're a defender what he's going to do next. And for me, he has to start today, and he will lead the line really well, and Saints have to be direct and get in behind Arsenal, because that's where I have seen him struggle in recent weeks with Ben White and Gabriel at centre-back.
Well, let's kind of delve into Arsenal a little bit more then, Dean, because they seem to be stuttering slightly at the moment with back-to-back losses against Crystal Palace and Brighton. You know, what are you expecting to see from them today?
I'm expecting them to come out and win. You know, that a few weeks ago we would all say they were in the driving seat to get that top 4 position. Tottenham have had some really, really good results, and Arsenal dropped off a little bit, and that could be due to the squad and the players being so young. They've never been in this situation before. The manager is young as well, so he's still learning. Suddenly there was an expectation on Arsenal where, you know, beginning of the season they were bottom of the league and they were always chasing and trying to get higher, and there was a lot of negativity around the club, and they changed that and got themselves into a really good position. But then suddenly with that, there's the expectation, and maybe that's affected the players. And obviously with Partey being injured, I think he's a huge player for Arsenal. I really rate him. I think he could play for most teams in this Premier League. I really like him as a player, and he has a real effect on the younger players around him, and especially in being such an important position in the middle of the field. He dictates play, he can win the ball back, he brings that intensity. I really like him, and I think he's been a miss for Arsenal. So they've just dropped off a late, but they're still in a good position. Before we came on air, Tottenham were drawn with Brighton. I don't know how that's going now, but if they drop points today, this is an opportunity for Arsenal. But they've got some big games coming up, Man United, West Ham, so they probably look at it today and need to win.
Oh, absolutely. Arsenal certainly need to keep the pressure on Spurs if they want to stay in that top 4. Well, lots of you getting in touch already, which is fantastic to hear. Hello to Peter. He says he'll be happy with a point today. James Neat also getting in touch. Hello to you. He says he can't be there today, but come on, the Saints. Vishnu also watching. Good afternoon. He says he's going for a 2-1 win to the Saints. He says we need this today. Yeah, a win certainly would be nice, wouldn't it, Vishnu? Danny Turner also predicting a 2-1 2-1 win. And Sheila getting in touch as well. She says, let's have a game with some passion today, please. Thanks very much for those comments. But we must get to the team news now. Lots of changes, actually, as predicted. Looks to be a 3-5-2 formation. We'll have to wait and see. So 4 changes as Lianco, Valerie, Perro and Broja come in for Salisu, Livramento, Adams and Adam Armstrong. So let's take a look at that starting 11 in full then. In goal, it's Fraser Forster. The back 3, Jan Valerie, Jan Bednarek and Lianco. Then it's Carl Walker-Peters, Roman Perro, our captain James Ward-Prowse and Oriol Romeo. And then Moy Elianusi and Armando Broja complete the starting 11. The Saints substitutes then are as follows. Willie Caballero, Jack Stevens, Mohamed Salisu, Tino Livramento, Nathan Redmond, Nathan Teller, Shane Long, Shay Adams and Adam Armstrong. So there you go. Time to digest that. We were expecting changes, weren't we? Dean, what do you make of that starting 11?
Interesting. I think it's a change of shape, like you said, Kenzie. Whether it's a 3-5-2 or it's a 5-4-1 potentially. I think that potentially with James Ward-Prowse and Elianusi breaking from midfield and Oriol Romeo kind of sitting there and being more of that balance and defensively minded. It'll be interesting to see. But there's lots of attacking options there. I'm sure the fullbacks, the wingbacks will be really attacking to try and get really, really high and give that width to Southampton. And Broja coming back in. Like Joe mentioned, with Broja in the team, he can lead the line on his own because he has all the attributes. He's quick, he's strong, he holds the ball up really, really well, which is so important for a striker and so important for a team like Southampton. If they do play a little bit deeper and try and play on the counter attack, when it comes into him, it sticks. And then it gives you time and a chance for other players to get around him. So I like the team. I think it gives Southampton a chance. You've got the players on the bench and come on make an impact against Arsenal if the game is level or Southampton are winning, which is really, really important. But I think the managers looked at it this week and just thinks we need to be a little bit more solid. We need to stay in games. You know, last week you look at it and the game was gone before even Southampton had a chance to get into it. So I think that's important today, that Southampton stay in the game, build their way in, build their confidence and belief back in, and then take the game to Arsenal.
Yeah, I should add as well, Stuart Armstrong does start for Southampton today. My apologies if I missed that out of the starting 11. Joe, what do you make of this team to face Arsenal today?
I like it as well. I think kind of back to basics in terms of, let's get to half time, maybe level. And it has worked well against some of the bigger teams this season. So I think it's kind of going back to safety first approach almost. I do like that Broja up top maybe it looks like he has Elianusi just floating in underneath him, and Redmond and Broja had a really good partnership earlier on the season when he was just picking up the ball and making those runs off the last man. So I think if Broja plays with no fear, which he has for most of the season, that gives Saints a really good focal point. And I just think that with Arsenal missing obviously Partey, Kieran Tierney as well, some really big players for them. Lacazette's not playing for them either today, so they're missing a lot of experience. And I just think Saints can really get at them, but do it in a more controlled manner, because we mentioned again, 15 goals conceded the last 5 games, but also only 3 goals scored since the start of March. So the balance just hasn't quite been there, and I think this maybe gives Saints a bit better balance. And then with Perro and Walker-Peters as the wing-backs, I think it gives them some decent options in attack, but also a bit more solidity at the back. And Jan Valerie's been playing really well whenever he's been called upon, so I don't think many people had him as a starting centre-back at the start of the season, so fair play to him for taking his chance.
Yeah, most definitely. Certainly an interesting starting 11. Looking forward to kick-off now, which is, of course, at 3 o'clock. And to get us in the mood, we have brought back a wheel of goals. This is always good fun. I think we're yet to do it in person. We need to get an actual wheel, don't we, that we can actually physically spin. But let's go ahead and spin the wheel now, shall we? So we're going to spin this wheel and take a look at some goals we've scored against Arsenal over the years. And Joe, your first one is Jose Font. This is a good one. Scoring in 2014. I mean, what a terrific servant for Southampton Football Club he was.
Oh, absolutely incredible. I mean, talk about a guy who got every ounce out of his career and still is doing that at Lille in France. You know, amazing to see his longevity. He scored quite a few goals. I was looking back at the stats, 15 goals in 260 games. Very decent for a centre-back. Scored 7 in the League One season. And I sat down with him in 2015 in an in-depth piece for NBC, And he was great. The stories he had, I spent about an hour and a half with him at Staplewood, could have been there all day long, and it was just sensational to hear him coming up through the academy at Sporting Lisbon with Ronaldo, and how his career ended up in England and then started with Saints in League One. So great goal. We scored a lot of goals like that, right, Dean? And I want to ask you about, obviously someone you play very closely with. How was Jose as a character and a leader, right? He seemed to be a talisman for the team alongside yourself as captain.
He was brilliant, really, really good. He was a fantastic professional, worked really, really hard, good captain, led by example, really, really did. And, you could trust him. I played midfield, and obviously Jose behind me. I felt safe with him there. And like you say, scored some goals, scored some important goals as well. And a good guy, really, really good guy. And, look, he's still playing now. He still loves the game. Speak to him occasionally. And he just wants to continue to play. He loves football, which is brilliant. And we had lots of players within that group. So a leader in that dressing room, and, hated losing. One of those players that hated losing. And you can just see why he's done so well in his career.
Certainly can. Well, that was a good one to get us started. Let's see what we've got up next and spin that wheel once again. So Dean, it's your turn to talk us through this one. And who's it going to be? Oh, another good one. Sadio Mane versus Arsenal on New Year's Day. This was back in 2015. I mean, what a finish this was, Dean.
It's an outrageous finish, if I'm honest, because you think it's a cross, but there's no other Southampton players within the box, really, or within reach of the ball. But, what a way to start the new year for Mane with that blistering pace. It's a really good running behind. It's a good ball from James Ward-Prowse, and it's the control, it's the balance. He's under pressure, gets there before the goalkeeper. Both the goalkeeper and the defender do okay. He's not in a great position, but the finish with his left foot, the amount of curl and spin he gets on it, and he's so accurate. It's a brilliant finish. It really, really is, and he has that ability. He's a top player. I remember when I first saw him play for Southampton, he just had that pace, and he was really, really direct. And I actually saw him, I think the first time I saw him was against Leicester, when I was a Leicester player, and he was playing against Richie Delat. Richie Delat was lightning quick, really, really quick, and he outpaced him and outmuscled him. I think, oh my word, who's this? But no, really good player, and that is a brilliant finish for him, really, really good.
Yeah, that goal almost gets better every time you watch it, doesn't it? It's going to be hard to beat that one, but let's see what we've got next. Joe, this one's for you. So you will be talking us through, none other than Charlie Austin scoring in Ralph's first home game in charge. An amazing moment.
It's an amazing moment. What this cross coming in. This is, I think, the moment I felt as a Saints fan, like, okay, everything's going to be okay. It was a tough 12, 18 months there, just staying up the season before, Ralph coming in. But this was a huge win that really lifted the mood pretty much for the rest of the season. Went on a really good run after that. And I love the way that Austin just waits for the ball here from Shane Long. He just clips it in and just waits. He uses all that Nelson experience. And this is not his first rodeo, was it, Charlie Austin? He does this day in, day out, wherever he's been. And yeah, incredible. I actually remember when I was a youngster at Salisbury City when I was still playing. I came up against him when he was at Poole Town, and he was just a goal machine, scored goals all over the place. And he scored 20 goals in 81 games for Saints, which isn't bad, not a bad return. He was on the bench a lot, but he just didn't really seem to suit Ralph's style. So I know he was a fan's favourite, but that was probably his best moment, I think. That and scoring away at Old Trafford, the winner. But he had some, always seemed to pop up and score big goals for Saints whenever he was called upon.
Definitely. All right, well, let's take another spin of that famous Saints wheel and see who we've got next. Okay, the man we've just seen in action with the assist, Shane Long, scoring in a 4-0 win back in 2015. Dean, this was a bit of a controversial one, though, with Shane perhaps committing a sneaky trip on Laurent Koscielny in the build-up.
Well, I love this goal because you wouldn't get away with it now. It would be disallowed with VAR, and it's just clever play from Shane, really. I know when we used to play before VAR, you tried to get any advantage you could, push the boundaries as much as you could. And I think if you look at the finish from Shane Long, he's so relaxed and so composed because he probably thinks he's going to get called back for a free kick, if I'm totally honest. But it's a great finish. It's a good counter-attack in football. You end up with 3 passes. Shane Long goes out to Mane. I think Mane comes back to Shane. A really, really, really good finish against a good Arsenal team. So, Shane's been a good servant for this football club and still going now. He's had an impact this season that maybe you wouldn't have expected. And he's done really, really well. And I think he can continue playing and still have an effect within the dressing room and on the pitch. So good finish from him there. And yeah, I like it. It's cheeky. It's the sort of thing that would happen all the time in training, which you would try and get away with. And he's got away with one there. So I'm not surprised he's smiling after he scored.
Absolutely, I love that from Shane. I don't know about you, but this is getting me in the mood for kickoff. I do love a wheel of goals. Let's give it one more spin. I think we've got time to talk about one more goal. And I think there's only one player it can land on now. It is, of course, James Beattie, back in 2002, with a free kick that I think James Ward-Prowse would be pretty proud of.
Strike, that is. Technique, power. I mean, this is when he was at the top of his power, right? In the England squad, I think he got 23 goals this season, something like that. And yeah, James Beattie, when he was in his prime, was pretty unstoppable for these few seasons. And this Arsenal team was quality. You see the wall there, Vieira, Bergkamp, Henry, Sol Campbell, David Seaman. So it was amazing. And I think Beattie always used to come up with the spectacular. Remember some of the goals away at Tottenham and Chelsea, and always seemed to deliver against Pompey as well, and big wins and big moments. So got to love that as a Saints fan. But yeah, some great goals. And like you said, really getting us in the mood here for this good game today.
Actually, just a bit of team news to bring you after goal of can't say it, wheel of goals. My apologies. Just from the Arsenal camp, Lacazette actually misses out today through COVID. I've just been told. As you say, a real positive that for Southampton. Let's talk about Arsenal then, shall we? Because they will want to capitalise on the likes of Alex Lacazette missing out today. Then, Dean, what do Saints need to do to get a result here today, and what do you think the score's going to be?
Believe in themselves, back themselves, a reaction. Defensively, need to be good defensively, and I think that the players need to be determined to try and keep a clean sheet today. I think that's how you'll beat Arsenal today and get a really good result with them. Arsenal will look at it with their fixtures coming up. They know they need to win this game. This will be a fixture they've identified and think we need 3 points today. So they're going to come out and they're going to try and express themselves, and they'll look at the game last week and think, okay, there'll be opportunities, but I can really see Southampton being different today, bringing that energy back, playing on that counter-attack. I can feel a good atmosphere at St Mary's today, and I'm looking forward to this game. So I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 Southampton win.
I like the dramatic pause before you said that as well. Okay, 2-0 from Dean. Joe, what are you expecting today?
I wasn't expecting that result, but yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I think Dean mentioned it. Arsenal need to win this. They're in the top 4 battle, a few disappointing results, missing some key defenders and Lacazette, so it feels like an opportunity for Saints. Arteta's been talking about the need to embrace the challenge and really go for it today, which I think maybe suits Saints a little better, because Arsenal are going to come out the traps and just try and have a bit of a reaction from the recent results. So I think that may leave a few gaps for Saints to expose, but this is still a very good Arsenal team. So I'm going to go 1-1. I'm going to go a 1-1 draw. I think Saints' record against Arsenal hasn't been great in the last few years, but I think a draw will be a very good step in the right direction after last week, and will give Saints a good platform for this 4 games coming up. This really feels like a mini kind of league against all the teams around them in the mid-table, and yeah, hopefully a 1-1 draw, and we'll take that.
Okay, well, we like the sound of that. Thank you both for your company as always. We are going to give the final word to the fans though, so just enough time to quickly run through a few comments coming into us. Rona, hello. Going for a 2-1 win actually. I've been seeing that a lot come through in the comments. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Tyler Love, hello. Come on the Saints, would love to see Teller more involved, he says. Ryan Ackland also leaving us a comment. He says, get well, Steve. Thank you for that one. And actually, we have got a comment from the man himself, Steve Forbes, watching from a sofa at home. Hello, Steve. We miss you. He says, gutted not to be there today, but feeling a return to form from Saints. Come on, you Reds. P.S. Is Dean wearing shorts under that coat?
No, unfortunately not.
He's being very smug, Steve, because Steve's at home all cosy in the warm. Steve, you know how cold it is up on this gantry. I love it though. Dean, Joe, thank you ever so much for joining us, and of course they will be back with us after the match for the final whistle, when we will bring you all of the major talking points and analysis from the game. Don't miss it. We'll see you then.